Good evening, everyone. We would like to welcome you back to our Team Tuesdays webinar series. My name is Kristen Lenig, and I am the Central Field Director for Special Olympics Pennsylvania. Tonight, we have a very special webinar presentation for you. I will be handing over the reins to some SOPA athletes and a board member to kick off and lead SOPA's new initiative, the Diversity and Inclusion Town Hall, Race and Disability. Tonight's webinar will address some very important and sensitive topics. While your microphones will be muted and your video cameras will be disabled, we do encourage comments in the chat box. Please feel free to type in how you are feeling, your own experiences, thoughts, and reactions. But please be mindful to respectfully communicate, as we want to ensure that this is a safe space for everyone participating. SOPA is firmly a nonpartisan, non-political organization and is strongly nonpartisan and non-political in every aspect of our work, including when it comes to statements and advocacy. We are going to kick off this webinar by hearing from Matt Aaron, our President and CEO of Special Olympics Pennsylvania.
See you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this different Team Tuesday webinar, but a really important one, an important conversation that we need to have. I'm looking very much forward to the conversation tonight. I plan to listen and learn from all the wonderful stories that will be shared this evening. And as Kristen just shared, we will be talking about some topics that may be difficult for some tonight. So I want to start by talking about why this is so important. Special Olympics is an organization that is about inclusion. In fact, we're in the middle of a 5-year Inclusion Revolution campaign. And as an organization that supports inclusion, it's important that we welcome everyone and that everyone feels safe and included in being part of Special Olympics. So this conversation tonight is a really important one to help us accomplish our mission. But while I say that, I also know that as all of you come to this conversation in this meeting tonight, and it's great to see the participant list just went over 80. So it's great to see such interest in this topic. But everyone is coming to this conversation tonight from a different place. Some of you may be really excited to be part of this conversation. Some of you may be a little bit nervous. All of those feelings are okay. But what we'd like to do to get things started, because I know it's difficult sometimes on a webinar to really feel like you're participating in a conversation, but we want to encourage that as much as we can. So what I'd like to do to get started tonight is if each of you would type into the chat box, if you're comfortable doing so, type in how you feel, either a word or a phrase, about how tonight's topic makes you feel. So again, only do that if you're comfortable, but if you're comfortable sharing your thoughts, we would love to see the different feelings and thoughts that everybody's bringing into this conversation tonight. And as you think about that and what you'd like to type, I see some comments are starting to come in, which is great. As you're thinking about what you'd like to type in, I want to introduce two of our board members who are going to moderate our discussion tonight. I'm going to turn it over now to Terrell Drake and Ernie Roundtree. They are two wonderful Special Olympics Pennsylvania board members, and each of them will give you a little bit more introduction about their own backgrounds. But I'm so thrilled that they will be moderating our discussion tonight. So Terrell and Ernie, let me turn it over to you now. Thank you very much for moderating tonight.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, everyone. My name is Terrell Drake, and I am the Associate Dean and Head Diversity Officer at the Villanova School of Business. I'm also a member of the Special Olympics Pennsylvania Board of Directors. I'm excited to be here this evening and a part of this important conversation on the intersection of race and disability. In my work at Villanova, I work to ensure our community is welcoming and inclusive to anyone who is underrepresented and minoritized, and quite honestly, really anyone, even beyond our underrepresented community members. We strive to make sure every single member of our community has an excellent experience and feels as though they belong. And my team and I also work to ensure that everyone's voices are being heard by hosting forums like the one we're all attending tonight, where students, faculty, and staff share their experiences and help others within the community learn about the positive and negative aspects that people may experience because of their race, ethnicity, gender, disability, or other aspects of their identity. When we hear negative aspects of people's experiences, we come together to resolve those issues, like a team. So in our SOPA community, it's equally important for our athletes, coaches, families, and volunteers to learn about these issues and work together to ensure we all feel as though we are one big team. We want our teams to be diverse and to be sure that everyone's voices are being heard. I'd like to now hand it over to my co-moderator, Ernie Roundtree.
Thanks, Terrell. My name is Ernie Roundtree. I'm an athlete from Monroe County Special Olympics, and I also serve on the SOPA Board of Directors for the state. So, Terrell, let's take a look in the chat and check out some of the audience responses.
All right, so it looks like we've got some people that are interested, which is great, that are concerned but curious, which is also great. Some of the other comments that we have are happy that these issues are being addressed in a safe space. Some of our folks are humbled, excited. Ernie, what do you think about this? Do you agree with these words?
Yeah, I actually agree with it. I mean, some of them are pumped up for this.
I totally agree. And as am I, and I know you are as well. So this is a really great conversation we're getting ready to have, and we hope everyone stays just as interested as you are from the beginning. So thank you everyone for those thoughts. Tonight, our goal is to come together and commit to truly ensuring that every member of our community is included. We hope our discussion will educate, inspire, and empower allyship. The webinar's program will feature presentations that define terminology related to race and disability, followed by personal testimony and storytelling that highlights the lived experiences of SOPA community members related to racial identity.
Words matter and they reflect diversity. It is important to have a shared understanding of words that describe people's experiences. So in this conversation about race and disability, we want to introduce and define some of the most common terms. I would like to welcome Raymond Anderson, a SOPA athlete from Philadelphia, to define our first set of terms.
What is that? What's on? Discrimination is the unfair treatment of particular person or group of people. Usually the different treatment is because of the person, sex, religion, nationality, ethnic, race, or other personal traits. Discrimination prevents people from doing the things that other people cannot do freely. Can happen in many ways in many areas of life. It can happen at working, at a public, and at school. For example, if a student is not allowed to go to school because of his or her race, it is discrimination that this racism is a discrimination in social prejudice against people with disabilities or who are perceived to have disabilities. Racism. Racism is an unfair treatment of people based on the opinion that one race is better than another race or races. Racism exists all over the world and takes different forms.
Thank you, Raymond. I would now like to introduce Amir Wood, a SOPA athlete from Philadelphia, who is going to share a personal story about discrimination.
Thank you, Ernie. Thank you, Raymond. Good, good evening, everyone. My name is Amir Ali Wood, and I am an Special Olympics Pennsylvania athlete from Philadelphia. Tonight, I want to talk about the social issues such as discrimination, racism, and ableism, what these words mean to me, and some of the experiences I have had. I have experienced conflict and discrimination for multiple aspects of who I am as a person and my religion, my intellectual disability, my health, my race. I remember visiting family outside of the city. Once when my family and I were arrested for being Black and called racial slurs with the N-word. In school, I was treated unfairly and discriminated against. Because of my religion and health, I have an illness called colitis Crohn's disease. These experiences growing up have made me feel like I have to ignore or suppress my emotions, my anger and anxiety, assertiveness and frustrations and discrimination. Feels the same to me, whether it's because of my abilities or my skin color. George Floyd was killed this summer. I remember the protests, and it made me think about of all the different families that experienced the pain and hurt from discrimination. My family has experienced hatred and racism multiple times, and it made me think of those moments too. Racism has existed for so long, and I hope that it will end. I hope that people will be truthful and treat everyone the same. That we as a individual will truly have the same rights under the laws. Looting and violence is wrong, but people are tired of being discriminated against and not feeling heard. So they feel forced to be louder with their actions. I believe there is a better way, and I believe in a peaceful protest. It makes me unhappy to hear about experience discrimination, but my religion has helped me process. I am intelligent, brave, strong, healthy, and confident. I was able to resolve this conflict and problem. I am excited to start over with school, and I hope to attend a program for students with intellectual disabilities at Acadia University. The end.
Thank you for sharing your story, Amir.
You're welcome, Terrell.
So brave. It's so brave of you to allow others to learn from your experiences. And as Amir shared his story, we can understand that he faced discrimination due to many aspects of who he is and how he identifies as a person. It's unfair to be treated badly because of your race, or the religion we practice, an illness we possess, or disability we may have. By having Amir share his story, we hope that it encourages others to speak up if they see any of these things happening to others. We want everyone within our community to have a great experience.
Let's now bring back Raymond for our next round of terms.
Actually, Ernie, before we do that, I
Yeah.
think we wanted to see if there was some audience participation, right?
Yes, and I see a lot of comments in them on the screen.
So if anybody has any comment that they would like to make based on Amir's story or thinking about discrimination or racism, please go ahead and add it to the comment box. If you have any questions about for Amir or for any of us, please add that to the chat box as well.
It looks like we do have some questions I'm going to read off to you guys. One of these is for Amir.
Okay.
Amir, have you ever met anyone else in SOPA who has shared some of the experiences you've talked about this evening?
I'm gonna say yes. It was an athlete. You know, it was one of my old SOFA basketball team players. He experienced the same problem. It made him feel upset. It made him took sick the same way. We talked to each other, and he motivated me. But yes, I did though. Until this day, we still friends too.
That's wonderful. I know, Amir, you also talked about how your religion has helped you through some of these things and helped you process some things. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Christian, yes. You know, when I first felt discriminated and had the accident, you know, I cried, but like I prayed, I prayed. I prayed and asked God to strengthen me, asked God to reward me, make me stronger, make me get through this conflict. And that's how I was able to get through it. I prayed and I read. I read my religious book called the Quran, and I prayed, and that's how I was able to get through the motivation, able to get through it. And my last thing, what else helped me be able to get through it, I end up saying to myself that I wanted to be a SOFA Special Olympic PA athlete. And that's what I think what really came in together.
Great. Amir, another question coming in is, do you have any advice for other athletes that might have dealt with discrimination?
Yes, that's a good question. That's an excellent question. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, the audience, for asking that great question. I want to answer that for you guys. If you ever, or any SOFA athlete, or even any staff members or athletes, if you ever come across a discrimination problem like this, the most important thing is to record the accident, have your proof, your evidence, and take notes and motivate yourself and tell someone, go see an attorney or support it to the media and motivate yourself and tell and let the community know you were wrongfully discriminated. It is not great. It is not okay to discriminate against someone. And it's not great at all. And trust me, it will hurt you like it hurt me. It's stressful. I don't want none of the athletes to ever feel like I have felt. I'm telling you this now. You do not want to feel it. I'm hoping that you guys never experience that. If you guys ever experience discrimination, hatred discrimination, racism discrimination, you guys can pray, get some help, assistance, support, go to the media, go to an attorney, and build and motivate yourself. And the last thing I'm going to tell you guys, do not let your anger get involved in your body. What I mean by that, do not let your anger get you to snap out or to act crazy. You want to be assertive. You don't want to be aggressive. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Amir.
You're
Amir, you also talked about how you were very motivated to become a Special Olympics athlete and how much importance that is to you in your life. Can you tell me how Special Olympics has helped you overcome these challenges?
Yes, that's a great question, Christian. How Special Olympics had accommodated me and motivate me over this situation and accident I have been through. Um, Special Olympics have motivated me and supported me. How supported me when I first applied last year. They responded to my email a year ago before 2019. They respond. I took sick and I was had to wait, so I started the next year, 2019, playing basketball at Northeast High School. Fully All Stars was my basketball super team. They motivated me when I told one of my old coaches that that I experienced the accident. It was an accident, I was discriminated against. They motivated me, supported me, telling me that we're with you. We're going to support you. You don't have to feel ashamed. We know how you feel. And I said, thank you. I appreciate it. With my SOPA Philly athletes, staff members, teammates, we all support each other. We all support each other. And by playing basketball and participating as a player, I really enjoy Special Olympics. And I said that was one of my favorite moments that made me feel better, because that also made me like, okay, I was discriminated. I'm not the only one. We all can do anything. We can be anything. We just have to trust and practice. And that motivated me a lot. So until that day, I still understand, like, okay, I don't have to worry about nothing. Just think of dedication and motivation. And Special Olympics was the way for me and support me. That's all I could say. That was my moment.
And speaking of support, Amir, I don't know if you can see the chat box right now, but you are getting a lot of love and support right now from your fellow athletes and coaches. We'll make sure we send it to you later just so you can read this. A lot of great things happening here. A lot of shared comments of people saying that they feel the same way you do and the experiences they've had they felt similar to you. So you are an inspiration to a lot of people here tonight. We have another question that came out to all the speakers on right now, Ernie and Terrell as well. The question is just, how do you guys handle when negative things happen? How do you overcome discrimination or other negative things like this that happen in your life? Ernie, do you want to start?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I went through this probably 3 years ago, dealing with OVR. My supports coordinator was with me, and basically when they told me, oh, you can't go to school for this program because of the disability and my IQ level, my supports coordinator was uncomfortable of that person, because basically he wasn't looking at me, he was looking at her, and got in the car, and how I handled that discrimination. It was hard, very hard. And I remember going back in the car with my supports coordinator crying. And she supported me and told me, continue to follow that dream. Don't let them tell you that you can't do it. They don't know, your ability of doing it. So, wow.
Great, thank you, Ernie, so much. And then Terrell, do you want to also answer that question as well? How to overcome those negative thoughts and feelings, and just overcome that in general when you experience those things?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share. I think the most important thing for me is to, one, I think Amir noted this a few minutes ago, is not let yourself get rattled.
Right.
These things are going to happen to you. We're all going to be negative things, and discrimination happens every single day, right? And so the thing that you have to do is really rely on your support system. So be it your family, a friend, a spouse, a significant other, Your teammates, some of your athlete teammates can actually, be a part of your close support system too, colleagues, whatever it might be. Really rely on the people that are close around you and share the experiences sometimes before we react. And if you share, get advice, and then think about how you want to react and how you want to address the situation. And then typically when you're able to address it with a slightly calmer head, you can get your points out, the points that you want to make about the situation, and then move on. The other thing though, sometimes if it's an act of discrimination that maybe you don't feel as though you can address, then tell someone. I think the biggest thing is when negative things happen to us, or discrimination or other types of negative things that may happen, you have to tell someone. So again, tell your close support. So again, friends, family, coaches, other athletes, whatever it may be. Be sure to let someone know. The more people you let know, people will steer you in the right direction of how to resolve a particular issue.
All right, thank you so much for that feedback. Again, we are looking through the chat box here and seeing a lot of love and support for all of you guys. Thanking you for all your advice, excellent advice. Amen, Amir. A lot of great feedback from everyone here tonight. So I'm glad that everyone is so engaged and participating in the chat. We really appreciate it. Great, wonderful things coming through here. Ernie, before we move on, I did want to also ask you if you could also talk about how Special Olympics has helped you with your teammates or your coaches, helped you through any types of these challenges.
Yes, they helped me to speak up for myself, especially what I went through as a child. With my parents and them, they told me a lot. They encouraged me that it was okay to speak up. So I spoke up for myself. They also taught me to be self-confident of traveling. I mean, now I'm, from 2016, I've been traveling on my own, and I've been told I wasn't going to travel on my own. But with the sport, with Special Olympics in them, they showed me how to be confident and brave.
Great answer. Another one here for Terrell is discrimination the same thing as bullying? That's a big question.
Oh wow, yeah, that's an excellent question. Let's see. So bullying discrimination can be a part of bullying, but bullying can happen on many aspects of, again, similarly, someone can be bullied because of the color of their skin, because of their gender, because of their religion. So yes, technically, I would say that discrimination bullying is a form of discrimination. I think with bullying though, I think what we end up seeing is typically there's physical, can be some sort of physical altercation or physical abuse that can take place is with bullying at times. Not always, but certainly more times than not. Whereas sometimes discrimination can just be you're not allowed to do something, or you're not given something, or you're not given access into something because of who you may be. And bullying takes it a step further, where someone could potentially harm you in either a physical way or a mental way because of who you may be as well. Hopefully that answers that question.
Terrell, could you also maybe with your expertise tell us, we asked the question to Amir about what advice he would give to athletes facing discrimination. What advice would you give to coaches who may have, you had suggested earlier that you should tell someone, talk to someone. If an athlete comes to a coach and says that they're feeling a certain way or they've been discriminated against, what kind of advice would you give the coach to give to their athletes and keep their team strong?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, I think it's really, really important for the coaches to have a really good understanding of what the rules are, what the organization wants. You know, what our organizational culture is within Special Olympics Pennsylvania. And we know that we don't want people to be discriminated against. And so we want our coaches to have a really strong foundation in we don't allow folks to be discriminated against, and use the organizational culture and the rules and regulations of our organization to encourage their athletes to come and have a conversation with them if they are feeling as though they've been discriminated against. And then again, listening to that experience, and then trying to observe, right? There are times when you may see an act of discrimination and you're able to address it immediately. And so that would be one aspect of this, would be addressing something immediately when you see it. But if it's not something that you saw personally, sometimes we have to do a little bit of digging to make sure that we understand exactly what's happening. And so if an athlete comes to you and asks you or tells you that they feel as though they are not being treated fairly, then you try to have some conversations around to better understand what was happening in that particular instance. You'll talk to the athlete, you may talk to the other athlete that's being accused of the discrimination without accusing them of that, to just sort of understand what is the aspect of the relationship with the other person that may be problematic. And you may also ask others who maybe were able to observe in a particular situation. And as you begin to formulate what you believe happened, then you can have a more clear-cut conversation with someone and say, listen, these particular behaviors go against who we are as an organization, go against who we are as a team, go against who we are as a family, and really try to help that person understand that those aren't things that person would want being done to them, and that they also need to make sure that those aren't things that they are doing as well. Once you have that initial conversation and you make others around alerted to the fact that this is happening, if it continues to happen, then that's a different conversation that you then have to maybe pull someone aside immediately. Maybe they need to sit out a particular event, and potentially it might be that it's not something that's for them if they're not willing to learn and make sure that they're not discriminating against their other teammates as well.
Thank you, Terrell. I think that's really important to hear. It's important to hear the athlete perspective and give advice to our athletes as well as our coaches who are with our athletes on a daily basis, and they need to work together to make sure they are all supported and all safe. And I can see a lot of people in the chat box here tonight sharing similar instances and similar feelings of times that they were discriminated against or have felt bullied. So I hope that everyone here reading the chat box and including their thoughts and feelings are understanding that we're all here together and we seem to all have experienced very similar things. So we can all support and talk to one another, like Terrell's been talking about with your coaches and your fellow athletes tonight. So we are actually going to move on to the next part of our presentation. So Ernie, I believe you are next to introduce Raymond, right?
Sure. So So let's now bring back Raymond for our next round of terms. Raymond?
In conclusion means authentical bringing traditional excluded individuals and groups together and to process activities and decision making. There are multiple organizations working to address unfair treatment and violence against Black people, racist and equal and injustice organizations like Black Lives Matter, Urban Affairs, and Ends in Council, NAACP, and Urban League. Beloved community. The beloved community is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. vision of a society based on justice, equal opportunity, and love of one's fellow human being.
Thanks, Raymond.
Okay, great. Now we're going to actually talk to Ernie, Amir, and Raymond about inclusion. So let's start with Raymond. Raymond, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with inclusion at Special Olympics?
Well, I like the fact that they include everybody, no matter who you are or what race or what you believe in. They include everybody into everything. Even if you can't run that fast, they'll still include you. If you can't uh, shoot basketball that good, you're still included. If you can't play volleyball that good, you're still included. They'll help you out. They'll teach you and they'll teach you it. My experience in conclusion, I used to run track in high school, but I was in special ed, so the some of the athletes there, they was half and half with me. They didn't really listen because in the 12th grade I was like one of the captains, so they didn't really listen to me in the 12th grade when I became one of the captains because of my disability and me being in special ed. Some of them didn't listen. They listened to the other. I noticed they were listening to the other captains that was on there, but not me all the time. So when I came to Special Olympic, it was like a different world, and people took me in, they taught me, and they led me down a good path, and that's my experience with In Conclusion.
Thank you, Raymond. Ernie, I know we have talked before about you helping your teammates and being a leader to them. How do you make sure your teammates are feeling included?
Well, letting them take part of the warm-ups, including them and asking them can they lead a warm-up is one of them. One of my favorites. The other thing about including athletes is we're accepted no matter who we are and what ability level we are in. Like Raymond said, if you can't shoot a basketball, very good, you're included. And Special Olympics taught us showed us inclusion, that we're included no matter what ability.
Great, thank you, Ernie. Terrell, are you still there? I wanted to ask you a question about inclusion as well. For our coaches, back to our coaches again, how do we make sure our coaches have inclusive environments for our athletes, depending on their race or religion or abilities? How do we make sure we continue? Special Olympics obviously is known to be an inclusion organization, but how do we make sure from a local program level that we are having inclusivity all around the state?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things we talk about every day with our community at Villanova, and in particular at the Villanova School of Business, is reaching out and making sure you have conversations with people and you try to build relationships with people. And what that leads to is every time you have a conversation with someone, you learn a little bit more about who they are, you share a little bit more about who you are, and then you can relate on commonalities and also differences, right? So then you begin to build relationships on the fact that we both like pizza, right? Or maybe we both traveled to the beach this summer, or we both like hiking in the mountains or something like that. Or you might also find that two people have never done something, or maybe one person has done something that somebody else really wants to do. And so if you take the time as a coach to have conversations with all of the athletes in your particular area And then you encourage other people, you encourage the rest of the athletes to also have conversations with other people as well. And what starts to happen there is you start to build authentic relationships. It changes the culture. And then people really start to want to know a little bit more about each other. They want to learn more. They want to be around each other more. And it just creates, we talk a lot about athletes, but then it also creates a lot about team, right? And folks really having great relationships with each other. So my advice would be to just spend the time to ask questions, learn a little bit more about folks, share a little bit more about yourself, and build those relationships. And that's really what inclusion is about, is community, pulling people in, bringing people together, and going from there.
Great, thank you so much. And Terrell, to follow up on that as well, another question that came through was, how do our coaches create a safe space for our athletes to share their feelings? I know tonight we have a lot of people sharing in the chat box about their experiences, and like you even said, common things, so common experiences they're sharing tonight, which I think helps bring people together, like you were saying. But how can coaches create that kind of safe space and those opportunities for people to share and feel supported and listened to?
Yeah, so it's really as simple as that. You have to just create the safe space. So what you have to do is you have to be open and communicate with the athletes and on teams in particular, and you have to encourage people, right? So in the beginning, right, when you're trying to create that safe space, it might feel a little bit like pulling teeth. You have to just keep saying to folks, I want to create a space for you in which you feel empowered to tell me about what's going on in your life. Tell me what's going on about your experience within Special Olympics. And I think maybe you do it a little bit before, if there's an event that's happening, maybe you ask people to come a little bit before and just share a little bit about what might be happening with them, right? The more you do that, I think people start to feel like it's authentic and that people really want to hear about those experiences. And then what you then will start to get is, as people start to understand that you are open to hearing about maybe a bad experience, they may then come to you and share with you something that may be happening. It's not always bad, right? So safe space is not always about something that's bad. Safe spaces can just be about anything. You might want to tell someone about a really awesome experience that you had, about another coach that might have helped you out, about another athlete that may have helped you out, or maybe something that has nothing to do with Special Olympics, that you had a really awesome day at work or school or within your family or something like that as well. So I think you just have to put the effort in, and you have to continuously say to people, I want to hear about your experiences. We want to hear about your experiences. And you'll get some people who are brave to share. And sometimes you have to maybe step up and share a little bit yourself, right? So if you want other people to start sharing and telling you about things that are happening for them, you might have to give them an example from your own life, that then really starts to take down those walls that might be up and help people understand that you actually really want to hear what they have to say.
Great answer. I know, Ernie, I thought maybe you might have some experience in this. We talked earlier about the Stride Challenge and you being partnered up with your program manager. I'm not sure if you've ever played unified sports, or if Raymond or Amir have played any unified sports, but somebody asked how unified sports, or like the Stride Challenge, a unified experience, can help with inclusion. Ernie, do you have any thoughts on that?
Wow, this is my first time. Well, actually, I'm gonna say this is my second unified, because I did the unified standing long jump with one of the board members, and unified being. I'm trying to think. It's a good question though. Wow. The experience, the support of the other your unified partner, supporting the athletes is one of them about inclusion.
And do you feel like, Ernie, when you've done unified sport experiences or unified sports, if you were with somebody that's never been involved with Special Olympics, that would lead to a greater experience for them, a greater relationship between the two of you, and lead them to almost want to do more things with inclusion as well?
Yes.
And I think it's good to see in a lot of our schools as well with unified sports, having athletes that may have sat on the bench before and not been able to play sports. I think Raymond talked about you don't have to know how to shoot a basketball through the hoop yet. You can learn. You can learn from each other, and everyone can be included no matter what your ability is. So I think even having the unified sports, either the experiences or in our schools, help with all that types of inclusion. Very good. So we're looking at the chat box now to see if any more comments are coming through. A lot of great things as well. A lot of people are really going into the chat box and telling us a lot of things so that we're scrolling through. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so we're gonna move on. I think that's all the questions on that topic that I see here.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. I'll wrap up this section before we move into the next. So Raymond, Amir, and Ernie, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives on inclusion. When we think about the words Raymond defined for us earlier, inclusion, community, beloved community, Black Lives Matter, these words really should remind us to focus on each other and building community, as we talked about a few minutes ago. When we hear things like Black Lives Matter, it means that we want to ensure that our Black community members know that they are just as much a part of the community as everyone else. We want to hear about the experiences of others, and we want to make sure everyone's voices are heard. It is also about justice and equal opportunity for everyone. Similar to past movements to ensure rights for people with intellectual disabilities to lead independent, self-affirming lives not defined by their disability or the color of their skin, but because we are all human and deserve to be included, heard, and seen within our communities of athletes, coaches, volunteers, and families. So Ernie, I think we are back to you.
Yes. I would now like to introduce our final guest speaker for tonight, Chase Trimmer, the director of SOPA's Philadelphia program, who will be sharing a personal story about the importance of being a good ally.
Thanks, Ernie. Hi, everyone. My name is Chase. I'm the director of the Philadelphia program for Special Olympics PA. Very thankful for the opportunity to be part of this conversation tonight. To join Amir, Raymond, Ernie, and Terrell, and everyone here in SOPA who have joined to have what could be a very courageous conversation. It can be uncomfortable or even upsetting at times. I hope that by sharing perspectives and life experiences regarding race, that we'll value the ways in which we're all different, as well as the ways that people in Special Olympics are the same. Conversations on race and other aspects of diversity that have been traditionally discriminated against in our world, our country, and even in our neighborhoods are not just for people who are part of the groups directly affected. Working to end racism requires people like me, a white man, to participate. I want to introduce one more term and definition for us tonight, and then share just a little bit of my experience. Someone who gives support to a group that has been mistreated, but who is not part of that group, is called an ally. An ally is someone who makes the commitment and effort to recognize their own privilege and power, their own strengths of their position. And they work in solidarity. They work with people who are oppressed or hurt or discriminated against. They work for justice alongside of them. They invest in strengthening their own knowledge and awareness of oppression and things that are unjust. Allies accept that aspects of their identity have more power than others. And they use that position to advocate for people who may have less advantages. I am a proud Philadelphian. I'm originally from York, Pennsylvania, and my family is still there. I don't know if anyone from York County has joined us tonight. My parents are still there. They actually own a funnel cake business back in York called Savory's Pumpkin Funnel Cake. So I just want to put another plug My number one organization is certainly Special Pennsylvania, but my parents' funnel cake business has a special place in my heart. Maybe you've seen them at the York Fair. Anyway, I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood in the suburbs of York City. Multiple generations of my family lived in the city of York until years of racial tension and violence sparked a race riot in 1969 when a white police officer and a Black woman were murdered. My family was fortunate and privileged to be able to buy a house and move out of the city into a neighborhood that was considered safe. Growing up, for me, the vast majority of the people in my school and in my community were white, like me. I knew a few people of color, but I didn't really know anything about their life experiences or who they were as human beings. My judgment and my perception were, influenced by stereotypes, things like bias, hatred, fear. And honestly, I think I was scared of people who were different than me. I didn't know much about issues of inequality, and I was worried about saying the wrong thing. But over time, I started to learn a little bit more about movements that changed society, and became inspired by leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So many of us have heard of Dr. King, and inspired by the idea of a beloved community. I moved to Philadelphia to work in schools across the city, got to know so many different types of people, including people of color, on a very personal level. After working in schools, I kept working in diverse neighborhoods, throughout the city with the police department, and continued building those authentic relationships that taught me so much about myself, really. They challenged me to think differently about my beliefs and actions toward people who are different than me. Most importantly, those relationships taught me to listen deeply and learn about the experiences of others, to see the many, many shades of humanity in the world. Being an ally for others is really about building relationships. I think that's something that Terrell had shared with us. Those relationships so that we can understand other people's experiences and speak up when they need support, to make sure that they're heard or included. And I'd like to share 3 things that allies do. Allies listen. They give everyone an opportunity to speak. They actively listen, and they seek to understand the challenges that other people face. Allies unite. They bring people together. They remind others of similarities while respecting differences that mean something too. And allies act boldly. They lend their voice and their power. They role model what is right and not what is easy. One of the most amazing strengths of Special Olympics Pennsylvania's organization is our diversity. It's the people that make up this organization. We're people from all across this state. Eagles fans, Steelers fans, some folks in between, united in a belief that people with intellectual disabilities not only deserve, but have the right to opportunities to develop physical fitness, demonstrate courage, experience joy, participate in a sharing of gifts, skills, and friendship with their families, other athletes, and the community. That's our mission. We believe in inclusion, where everyone can become involved in this Special Olympics movement, regardless of their background or identity. But it's also important to recognize that some people within our diverse community face unique challenges in their lives because of their racial identity or their perceived racial identity. They may be a teammate, a coach, a coworker, or a friend from halfway across the state that we met at Fall Fest, years ago, who may need an ally during difficult times. They may need us to listen, unite, and act boldly to be an even more inclusive community. So I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be a part of this. And it's just great to see all the comments of support in the chat box.
Thank you, Chase. We have a couple questions that came through, and I think they'll be for you or possibly Terrell. Let me look here, coming through. One here for you, Chase, is how can local programs promote allyship amongst their team members?
Yeah, I think awesome question. So when we think about team members, there's so many different teams that we're all a part of. We're part of management teams, we're part of basketball teams, we're athletes, we're part of volunteer groups. I think all folks wanting to approach how do I be an ally, it's something that starts with a look inward, right? And looking at our own self ideas, or looking at our own identity. What are the things that influence our perspectives, the judgments that we make when we see people, because it's natural that we all make some sort of initial observation. And so thinking about what influences those first and foremost. So again, looking inwards. And then I think the next step to promote allyship within our programs is, again, to set up time for folks to listen, whether that's team time before practice, where instead of just jumping right into warm-ups and layup drills, we just do like a check-in on how we're feeling that day, and allow folks the safe space to share, kind of creating that type of environment. And I think one of the things that also is important is, I kind of mentioned that my experience growing up, there was a fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of offending people. And I think that's it's an understandable place, but I think we also have to give ourselves some space to understand and ask, what did we mean by what we said? And not just, initially shut down someone's process for trying to be more supportive, if that makes sense.
It does. Perfect. Thank you. Another question coming in here, Terrell. Another question is for athletes to be better allies. More specifically, if an athlete, Chase shared that he grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. If an athlete lives in an area where most of their team members are white, how can they be better allies to other people in their community or other athletes across the state?
Wow, that's an excellent question, Kristen. Thank you. Well, I think one of the things we have to do is take every opportunity we have when we meet people who are different than ourselves, and when we're around people who are different than ourselves, to go outside of ourselves and have a conversation. So a lot of what we talked about tonight has been about building relationships and meeting people and listening and learning. And so I think part of that's just what you have to do. So while you may be in an area that is mostly one race or ethnicity, I know there are tons of events that happen across the state. In a normal year, they happen in person, but right now we know that that's a little bit different. But when we are back to normal, and we are, meeting for our big events, go out of your way to meet people on different teams even, right? So sometimes it's not just about, yes, it's absolutely about race. That's what we're talking about tonight. But part of it too is just meeting people who are different than you. That starts with different locations, and certainly different gender and different race and those types of things as well. And so the more you interact with people who are different, and the more, I interact with people who are white, and the more white people interact with people who are Black, you begin to learn again about the commonalities and the differences. And that oftentimes what you realize is that you have more in common than you think. And you can build relationships on the things that we have in common, and go from there. So it's really about going out of your way when you do have the opportunity to meet someone of a different race, or someone who's different than you in any way, and doing that authentically, and making sure that person knows that you genuinely just want to know a little bit more about them, and you want to share more about yourself as well.
Great, thank you. Another question here for Chase. Oh, sorry, the chat box is moving quick. Have you experienced any downfalls supporting groups different from what you experienced growing up?
Interesting. I guess I think the only maybe downfall I would say is if I work to try to build a relationship with someone who's from a different group than I'm from, and I don't do that with my authentic self, that if I pretend to be someone that I'm not, if I, I'll share this. I was really into, despite not really knowing or having many personal relationships with people of color growing up, I was still into a lot of the culture that is representative of people of color, and so if I start to talk in a certain way that isn't really the way that I communicate, thinking that I'm gonna blend in or whatever, that's something that I would consider maybe a downfall, is trying to establish relationships from what you might call an inauthentic self, trying to be something that you're not. So I'm not sure if that answers the question. I don't think I've had any downfalls of trying to work to be open-minded to making friends and establishing relationships with people of all different backgrounds. I don't think I've experienced anything negative from that.
Great, Chase. Thank you. Ernie, we have a question for you. Do you think that being an athlete leader, or for you, a board member as well, has helped with promoting or supporting inclusion amongst your teammates, coaches, and athletes?
Absolutely, yes. It has helped advertise inclusion for a lot of people with a disability, including them in different roles if they want to be in part of leadership roles. One of them is they're included in that. They're also included in the management team after becoming an athlete representative. I think that's about it for that.
Thank you, Ernie. Thank you. Thank you. Another one's for Terrell. This is a nice one, a different angle than what I was thinking of. Is we were talking so much about how to be an ally and how to, as a coach or an athlete, support others. Someone asked the question, how do you find a good ally?
Oh, wow. That is a really, really, really great question. So I think anyone can be an ally, right? To sort of start this part of the conversation, is anyone can be an ally. And so I think what you have to do is, when you have a moment maybe in which something didn't go your way, maybe you're a little bit upset about something, you're a little sad about something, pay attention to the people who come to support you in those moments, right? As you begin to pay attention to that, some of those are going to be the people that you already expect, the people that you have built relationships with, the people that you're already friends with or have some sort of relationship with. And so those, of course, are certainly going to be your allies, but pay attention to the people who maybe you don't know. The new faces that come around to support you, the new faces that come around to high five and say, you know what, it's going to be okay. We know that this didn't go your way, or you didn't have your best moment in this particular setting, but it's gonna be fine. And for them to offer a little bit of encouragement to you, those are the people who, whether they know it or not, they're trying to be an ally to you, and they're reaching out to you to show you that they want to make sure that you're okay. And ultimately, being an ally, again, is about building the relationships, speaking up for others, and making sure that those people who can't necessarily always speak up for themselves are gonna be okay. And so look for those people who you don't already have relationships with, when we're thinking about finding new allies. And again, any of us can be allies, and we can have as many allies as people want to be for us. So there's no limit in any way. So just keep an eye out for those new folks that you've not met before, who are looking to encourage and provide support to you.
Great answer. Great answer. I believe we are actually going to go on to one more story. Shared by Roxanne. She didn't get to share her story yet tonight, so we're going to actually go back to her. And I believe Ernie, I think maybe you were the one that introduced her. Would you like to introduce her as well?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. I would now like to introduce Roxanne Negron, a SOPA athlete from Philadelphia, who is going to share her personal story about inclusion.
I'm not sure if I think I see her. Roxanne, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, it's a little dark, but if you wanna share your story, we have your mic on. We can hear you.
Okay, hold on.
Roxanne, can you still hear us?
Yeah.
Do you want to share your story, Roxanne?
Yes. Okay. To me, conclusion means that everyone should participate. It doesn't matter your background or the language that you speak, the colors of your skin. Conclusion means everyone is equal. It means we all help each other out, even if you're from all different country or you practice a different religion. I feel inclusion and respected at work in our working housekeeping for Airmark Northeast, where my worker and I are all different age, different treat, different skin color, and I come treat the same as everyone else at work. When I was in high school, people made fun of me because different. I want to speak up and share what I have to say, but it wasn't easy. When I hear people say Black Lives Matter, or when I hear about it, the news, I think about it. People are spoke up, I think means that everyone should be able to live together alone. Some people expect violence is not the right answer. I think one thing we should do in special labor to bring a strong community is to take time before practicing and training to have a team meeting to hear how people think we should to talk about.
Thank you, Roxanne. I do
You're
have a
welcome.
question for you. Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Yes.
You talked about your workplace. A lot of
Yes.
people, a lot of differences working together. I want to ask you, from where you work at, how do you and your coworkers make sure you all feel included?
Well, we make sure that we get along and make sure we be equals as a partner and work together.
Right, that's important. And how does that also relate to your Special Olympics family, your sports teams that you do with Special Olympics? I know that you are involved in a lot of different sports I see here, swimming, basketball, track and field, volleyball, all kinds of stuff. How do you make sure that you all feel included on your team?
Well, I get to meet the people, to recognize who I am or who I'm from, and then they will say back to me who they are or where they from, and we become friends and stuff.
Roxanne, I also noticed in your intro that you speak, did you say you speak English and Spanish?
Yes, I do. I speak English and Spanish.
So Roxanne, can you tell me, have you ever experienced any discrimination in your life with your language?
Oh yes, every time, because I told people I am Spanish, but I can speak both. I can show you. and then you just can learn. You can learn it from each other
That's very important.
because it's
And
very important to speak English and Spanish. You know.
right, Roxanne, how do you overcome that when somebody does show discrimination towards you because of your language? How do you overcome that obstacle of maybe that discrimination and keep moving forward?
Well, I feel great that I'm learning how to speak Spanish and English at the both same time.
And I saw in your notes as well, you like to teach people how to speak Spanish. Is that correct?
Yes, I like to teach them.
That's very good as well when you're working with other people and finding
Yep.
that common ground of people wanting to learn different languages and you being able to teach them.
It is good to learn different religion and different culture. It's important to learn.
It's important to learn and keep an open mind, right?
Yes, because you can have your open mind what people does or do, you know?
Exactly. Roxanne, I want to wrap up with one more question for you. How has Special Olympics helped you overcome the different barriers such as discrimination or being included? How has Special Olympics helped you with that?
I feel very included because they're like a family to me. Like you have different religion with different people and you get to know everybody.
That's right. That's right. And I don't know if you can see the chat box tonight, Roxanne, but we were saying earlier, there's a lot of love and support in our chat box tonight. So it is definitely a family environment with Special Olympics.
Yes.
Great, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Roxanne. We're going
You're
to
welcome.
go back to Terrell now.
Thanks again, Roxanne, for sharing your story. And also
You're
thanks,
welcome.
Chase, for sharing your story as well. Your example of being a great ally is much appreciated. And so ultimately, when we think about all of the stories and experiences that were shared this evening, we want to continue to think about our community members and what we can do to be allies to ensure everyone is having a great experience. As I stated earlier, anyone can be an ally. It requires each of us to speak up when we see bad behavior and to make sure the voices of our Black and Brown community members are heard. It's about building authentic relationships, learning more about each other, and recognizing that we are all stronger when we know more about our teammates. We want to make sure that we first invite everyone to the party, and once we are all there, we are inviting everyone to dance. And so before we close out tonight, we would like to return to our original audience activity that we did at the beginning. So at the beginning of tonight's webinar, we asked you to put a word or a phrase in the chat about how you felt about tonight's topic. Now, we would like you to take a moment to reflect on all that you've heard this evening and the experiences and all the things that our fellow athletes have shared, and put one word or a phrase into the chat box to describe how you are now feeling after tonight's discussion. So far, I'm seeing a lot of great jobs.
I'm seeing a lot of great
Yeah.
words.
Yeah, same.
It's wonderful.
I see phenomenal. I see enlightened, powerful.
I see peaceful.
Yes, yes. Awesome. So it's really great to end on a high note. So we really appreciate all of the amazing words that you all are sharing with us now, and keep them coming as we're going through the end of the event. So I'm going to turn it over to Ernie, and then we'll keep moving.
Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight for this very important conversation. A special thanks to all of our presenters who shared their stories. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Our next Diversity and Inclusion Town Hall will be held soon. So I'm going to hand this back to Kristen. Kristen?
Thank you so much, Terrell and Ernie. Thank you everyone for joining the call tonight, especially Amir and Roxanne and Raymond. With all your help and support, we really couldn't have done without you, and we really appreciate all your involvement and your stories that you shared. So it really means a lot to us that you shared your stories, your personal stories with us, and helped others be educated and listen to your stories and just inspire all of us. Really wonderful job, all of you. Now, this concludes our Team Tuesdays webinar tonight. Our next webinar will actually be a month from now on Tuesday, November 17th at 7 p.m. And it will feature the power of personality with Merrick Rosenberg, the CEO of Take Flight Learning. Merrick will walk us through his company's unique way of exploring personalities, which will help you not only learn about yourself, but also your SOPA teammates. Here's a teaser. It involves identifying which bird you are. Thank you again to everyone for joining this webinar. We appreciate everyone coming together tonight. We hope you enjoyed this special Team Tuesdays presentation. We will see you all again next month. And until then, stay healthy and stay safe.